Yeah, so
Absolutely.
Chris, really today I wanted to talk about your experience on Amazon because you're one of the guys who's been in the space for a long, long time.
Yeah, I've been on Amazon for selling on Amazon for over 13 years now. So I started working with an e-commerce management business back in 2010, and we looked at Amazon as being a new sort of entity because at the time it was just selling books, and we moved into the brand new categories that were pet care, and that's how it started. It was very basic back in those days, progressed through different e-commerce management roles, and eventually started off running an agency. So that's kind of how it all started.
When did you start the agency?
So e-commerce intelligence started back in 2019, um, literally just as a consultancy idea. So I was doing e-commerce management, but I was effectively just pushing a trolley around a warehouse. I just said to myself, I knew I could do more than this. I was getting some interest from businesses who wanted to work with me, just as a freelancer,
Yeah.
and took that on. It grew very rapidly, took one member of staff on, and just grown from there. Yeah, absolutely. So,
Because you see, most agencies have been around for a couple of years, 5 years at the most, if not less. So they don't even remember before the pandemic and after the pandemic. They don't even remember. You remember before
yeah,
Amazon was Amazon.
yeah. I remember before Amazon was Amazon. I remember Amazon before the pandemic as well. Yeah, and during, and people said things like, when we started the agency, which was technically about 6 months before COVID kicked in, um, that it's easy because everyone's jumping on Amazon, but the truth of it is, it was mainly brands coming to us going, can you sell PPE equipment? I've got this amazing new idea for, gowns and masks. And you think, yeah, you and about 5 other inquiries I get every single day. So it was difficult. And getting staff, getting the team involved was difficult as well because of remote work. And it was a real challenge. And when you're in such a fresh, new, young business, money's very tight and
Yeah.
costs are expensive. And it was tough. I mean, I'm not saying it was as tough as people who had to close their stores or close their businesses. I mean, that was awful. And we were in a situation, thankfully, where that industry
Yeah.
was growing. A lot of people were turning to Amazon and e-commerce in that space. But it was still tough. It wasn't an easy ride during COVID. It's still a very, very challenging, position to be in. So, yeah. And then since that, as you said, there's been so many more consultancies, agencies that have cropped up from people who've either been in the previous space, they've seen Amazon as an opportunity post-COVID. Some really good, some not so great. Some tend to jump on the idea of everything being on a bit of a whim, where you press a button and it generates money, and there's the
I wish.
whole culture of YouTubers, isn't there? Of make £1 million tomorrow on FBA, and you just have to kind of go, I wish it worked that way, but it really doesn't.
It's the amount of clients we've had who went on courses or went with other agencies and really got hurt financially.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I'm
I
sure
thought about it.
I'm sure when you get someone from another agency, you're like, this is going to be easy because their expectations are so low. I mean, most people who have agencies or consult haven't even sold on Amazon. Like it's
100%. Yeah,
yeah,
it becomes a bit of like a secondary thing, isn't it? People just go, oh, we'll just stick it on Amazon, and then when they start that process, they realize how difficult it actually is. And now it's getting even more difficult now with brand control, intellectual property. That's where we see some of the real struggles now, with Amazon pushing away resellers and secondary wholesalers and all this kind of stuff in favor of the brands. And a lot of the brands don't want to be involved. They see Amazon as being a bit of affecting their model. We've proven that some really big brands that aren't on Amazon are losing millions, because they're not investing in that as a channel. 40% of the world's e-commerce audience are on Amazon.
unfortunately, Amazon is huge. Unfortunately, however you want to see it, is people buy from Amazon. I mean, you need to be where your customer is. Are they a pain in the ass 100%? Do they make things easier? No, but
Yeah,
that's where the customer is. Like, I guarantee you, I always say this to brands, right? If you're doing well on your own website, I don't see a world how you can do well on Amazon. Like I struggle to see it. It's very difficult. Now I'm sure it happens, but it's very, very difficult because if you prove something on the website, which I think websites are even more difficult sometimes. Amazon, at least you have people that are ready to buy. If the customer on Amazon is there to buy, it's not there just to learn. Now, can you convert it? Do you have a good enough offer as a listing? Do you have the right pricing and reviews? That's a whole different story. But as a volume, sales and traffic, it's number one by far, and conversion, of course.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting how many people look at their e-commerce business as one entity, isn't it? They say things like, Amazon will detract people from my own website, or they'll take away my customers. And you go say to them, well, actually, you've got in the UK, you've got 14 million Prime customers. Their sole goal, they're going to start their shopping experience on Amazon, aren't they? They're not going to look on your website. They're going to go directly to Amazon and start their journey there. They're going to discover brands there first. So you have to think with e-commerce now, it's more about being in silos, because different marketplaces where different people shop, and especially the younger generations, they will move across. They'll go on TikTok, they'll look on Amazon, they'll make very different variant sort of opinions on where to buy.
Exactly.
So that's a crucial thing for people to understand, because they don't all filter back to your Shopify website, no matter how much you want it to be true.
I agree, and I think popular to contrary. I mean, contrary to popular belief, it's the opposite. Like if a customer sees your brand on Amazon and then sees your website, that's more of a credibility, because people see people who are on Amazon, brands who are on Amazon, as legit. Like there is no platform trusted as Amazon. You know that on a website, if you don't get an order, you have to get contact, customer service, emails. You will get your refund, but it might be a pain. On Amazon, if you don't get your order, you get an A to Z claim and it's automatically refunded. It's that level of trust there is. Is it fair? Not necessarily, but customer-wise, Amazon is a perfect company from a customer standpoint.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah, and that's how they've grown, isn't it? They've grown it on the basis of customer centricity, which I think if all of us built our businesses that way, the world would be a better place, rather than lining our pockets. Yeah, absolutely.
So you've been in the space for a long time. How have you seen the changes of when it first started in 2010, which I don't think there was FBA yet either on that time, right? Which is crazy, right? How have you seen the change from 2010 to now 2025?
Yeah, so I mean, FBA existed back then, but it was very much a trial, and it was a sort of a backup sort of option. It's kind of like where the space of the AWD, the distribution fulfillment network, is in America now. It's just kind of lurking in the background, trialing and testing things out. But we never used FBA back in the day, mainly because the size of the units was so big. They weren't sort of flat packed, and these were very expensive sheds for dogs. It was effectively like a massive shed, massive gates that were 6 feet long. They used to weigh 20 kilos each, so that you would have to use specialist couriers to ship them. You couldn't just put them in nice little boxes and send them in. In terms of how the marketplace has changed, the biggest changes are certainly around the goals and aspirations of where Amazon sits. So back in the day, it was sort of everyone would join in, every retailer would sell whatever they wanted. There was very little structure in terms of protection of brands, protections of barcodes. The catalog was a bit like the Wild West. And that's changed so much now. And Amazon's really understood that brands are where the money is, because if you cut retailers and wholesalers out, you cut the middlemen out. So there's more money in it for Amazon. So they're keen to drive forward the brands, but also to make sure that the efficiencies of their model are much more in tune to needing less labor. This is why the advertising business has grown so massively, because it's a huge cost, huge revenue grower for them. And I think it was $53 billion last year, with very little labor-intensive requirement needed, and very similar to the vendor program. So we've seen a huge change in the vendor program, where many smaller vendors have now been pushed off or been fed out because of the cost implications for Amazon. So that's changing quite heavily, and a lot more automation towards things like FBA. The new robotic systems that come into place, the new sort of systems that mean that Amazon still makes more money from doing less manual work, and there's less people involved in the retail space, and that tends to be where their objectives are going, I think.
I agree 100%. I think I was seeing like the amount. I think ads grew with 20 or 25%. The ads revenue grew which for a company at that size, it's crazy, 20-25%. But I mean, we've seen it on. If you're advertising in 2019 and you're advertising 2025, it's a very different landscape. 2019, you would stick an auto campaign and just like print money to a certain extent. But right now, it's a different landscape. That's why maybe I get I'm not a bit angry, but when I see YouTubers advising how to do ads like it's 2019, and not only that, anyone that I see that says this is how you do it, they're not in the space, because you can never be 100%. This is how you do ads, because every product is different, every market is different. You cannot tell me this metric is more important than that, because I can debate why that is, and vice versa. So with ads, from what I've seen, is for me, a bad agency is always super cheap, over promises, under delivers. If you tell me if you guarantee me you can double my sales in 1 month and you can do it for the cheapest price, I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioning that, because I mean, CPCs went up. I think year on year they went up about 23% for us.
Yeah.
So that's happening every year. So the cost is becoming more. It's because of intense competition, obviously, with the cost per click auction market. But one of the key things that we've always tried to focus on, and is becoming more apparent now with new clients we take on, is their profitability. Because people are investing in ads, they don't truly know their profitability. So about 82% of businesses that come to us, new businesses, when we take them on, they've got their fees wrong. So their entire cost structure is completely wrong, or they've not done it at all. And then if they don't know their profitability, how do they know how or what they can do when they need to invest in advertising, or things like deals or coupons, discounts? How do they know how to price? And that's a majority. And I'm not just talking about new startups and new sellers here. I'm talking about established multi-million-pound businesses. We've had businesses before that don't know their referral fees. We've had them that have had hidden costs that have not been accounted for, and that is the biggest thing that all sellers need to look at, is their profitability, and it's just not being done. I've been banging on about it for years, and now it seems there seems to be finally some sort of light. Now you see a lot more people talking about profitability and getting those net margins right, and really understanding costs, because you can prioritize as well. If you've got a big catalog of ASINs, you can prioritize what's profitable for you, and then say, how do I then make decisions on this product rather than one that isn't making you any money. That's probably the singular biggest change, I think, in terms of thinking, is the profitability, because Amazon's getting more expensive to run, but it's still the biggest player, and that's what we was going to consider. 40% of the UK e-commerce market, and it's just imperative to all brands. I don't agree with this idea that people say not all brands should be on Amazon. All brands should be on Amazon, because if you're not, your competitor is, and that's all there is to it.
And I think the reason profitability changed, because 3, 4, 5 years ago, the lending market was very easy. It was very easy to get loans. You had Amazon lending. You had a lot of artificial money coming into the market. And when you start getting money that's not yours, and your bank balance grows artificially, you're like, okay, maybe we're making more profit than we think we are. So I think that's what happened now. Is it's not the same marketplace. So you're not getting the lending you had before. And now, okay, actually need to make profit and be profitable and have good cash flow. I think that's the biggest difference that brands are in. Because before it was all about, is my top line growing? I don't care about the cost per click. I don't care about the X, as long as I'm growing in sales, because I can get more lending, I can get more investors. It doesn't really work that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about COVID before. That's still something that sits in that thought process as well, because people still think they are making the same, or should be making the same as they were during COVID, when the revenues were up, and then there was big investors. Remember the aggregators that all went belly up because they investigated in huge amounts of sellers because of revenues they were propping up against COVID times. And then, those bubbles eventually burst.
Yeah, I have a couple of friends who actually sold to Thrasher, and they said one of the biggest reasons for the brands going down, it was mismanagement, because I don't know how true this is, but what Thrasher used to do is they didn't have e-com experts in, actually. Like their background was investing, private equity, and all of that. They were great at raising money, but what they didn't realize that an Amazon bestseller doesn't stay there forever if you don't manage it. Like it's a fight every day. At that level, it's a fight every day. So, but the e-commerce guys, the guys who own the brand, they understood that. They understood Amazon very well. So they were understanding that game. Once they were removed, everything started falling down, unfortunately.
Absolutely, yeah. As I always say, it's all about conversion and sales velocity. That's what runs
100%.
the ranking side of things. If you just suck it and see, you'll see very quickly that those sales will start to drop because Amazon's not making as much money. The referral fee market is what it's all about. Regardless what people tell you about, Rufus and perfect listing optimization. One of the things I did at a panel last week was speaking about performance.
Yeah.
Was if you look at something like ground coffee on Amazon, you'll see that the majority of all organic listings have a very high organic optimized listing score. So you're just in a sea of everyone else who's got the perfect title, the perfect A+, the perfect titles, the perfect images. What makes you different? And that's
Exactly.
what a lot of people don't take. Or they just tick a box, yeah, that listing's optimized and it's all done and dusted. And they don't look at the underlying data under the bonnet. And that's, I think that's exactly what a lot of investors have looked at. And they've seen top line sales. They've seen, oh, wow, this is performing really well. And they just leave it. They don't realize the management is such a long-term approach when it comes to optimizing your listings on Amazon. It's never a suck it and see. And this is what's going to happen now with people with AI tools is they're going to come in, they're going to press a button, because this is what a lot of people do with AI now, is they want to press a button to get as much money as possible very quickly. And then they'll go, great, AI said this is listed and optimized. And you go, it ain't.
It's not.
And we have to come back in and look at it in a more longer term holistic process of saying, how is this converting? How are people buying it? What's the sales velocity, the sales consistency that goes within and behind that?
I agree 100%. I think Amazon PPC, the listing optimization, that's just one part. That's not everything. It's such a bigger spectrum of how the customer buys, why he buys, why the conversion rate is suffering. I mean, I'm sure you've seen it. Many times the bestsellers are not even that optimized.
Yeah, because it's all about consistency. It's all about sales velocity, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've seen that happen so many times.
Like if you see many times the most optimized listings are not even doing as great as you would think. If you look at you see someone like, for example, Nescafe, which of course is a big brand, with just 2x Nescafe 900 grams, and they will just destroy and sell incredibly well. It's just, as you said, conversion and sales velocity. It's all about the momentum game in Amazon.
Yeah, absolutely. People keep talking about the new latest fad, the new latest algorithmic shift in Amazon, and I don't think it ever changes. It's not like Google, where Google has to stay relevant for its product to be consistent, right? If you're doing a search on Google, they have to keep fighting against people who are spamming SEO strategies to get their ranking, right? With Amazon, it's all about the financial model. It's all about what makes them the most money. So just saying you've got to optimize for Rufus, or the latest algorithmic trend says you've got to have 3 videos, right? It's total nonsense, because if it's not converting, it doesn't matter. And I think that conversion rate metric will be the beating heart of continuous optimization long term. And that's what we've seen. That's what seems to happen when you start looking at real data. It doesn't matter about review volume. It doesn't matter about all these little metrics. It's all about sales consistency, because the simplistic reason is it makes Amazon more money, right? It's effectively the same as what the CPC market does. The higher the cost, the higher it ranks. The higher the referral fees, the higher it ranks. That's what it all boils down to ultimately, isn't it? Long term.
Agreed. How many clients are you currently working with, would you say?
We've got about 70 different clients that we work with. That's something about 100 and something different brands we have as a secondary on our brand registry. So quite a lot. Yeah, every vertical, every category you can imagine, we've kind of covered at one point. So yeah, there's not a great deal I don't think we haven't covered. From various different brands, multi-million pound brands. We've worked with, some of the brands that were the top 100 sellers on Amazon, right down to new startups. So quite a large range.
And is it all full management you do for them, or is it just PPC, or it really depends on them?
Always full management. I mean, we would never, when clients come to us and say, do you do Amazon PPC? I say, well, yeah, but how
you can't do it without everything else.
Exactly. How are you looking at the bigger picture? The key thing with sponsored products, of course, is that your sponsored product, your listing is your ad, right? If it's not converting, no amount of campaign management and negative keyword targeting is going to change that, right? So we are completely full service. Yeah, every element, we will take the keys to the account and grow an Amazon brand.
I love that. I agree. That's the thing. PPC is one part, but it's so connected with the listing. Like, that's what you're advertising. If I put a blank image with £1,000 of price, I can do all the advertising. Nobody's going to buy it. It's just people are separating it, and I do understand why they're separating it because, of course, it's ways to make money, extra services. But if you really want to, you have to optimize everything. And I think stick to the basics. Too many people go too deep either in listing optimization
Of
or
course.
too deep into PPC. And as you said, it's really 2, 3 things that matter. Everything
Of
else,
course.
yes, it helps. But me personally, all the accounts we've worked on, I've never seen a big. It's not like we've optimized it once and the whole complete company changed. It can help, but it's never that.
Yeah, it's you don't want to put too many bells and whistles on with ads, especially if you're still in that sort of process of trying to get everything set up and trying to make sure that you're able to measure and monitor it perfectly.
What advice would you give for someone starting or I'll give you 2 examples, right? One person that's really starting a brand and they're just starting, and the second person who are big on Shopify, but they're not really aware of Amazon and they're like, okay, you can't make a profit or it's very difficult. What would you suggest for them to do?
In terms of if they were not profitable on Shopify, did you say?
No, if they're doing well on Shopify, but they kind of
Yeah.
have that concern of if I go to Amazon, my brand overall can go down, pricing might be an issue. All of these concerns that usually direct to consumers brand have.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the great thing is when you start from a D2C model is the fact you've already got a bit of information available to you. So one of the key things, if people say, what do I start listing? What do I start working with? Well, you've already got a list of bestsellers or products work for your D2C site, right? So you've got the foundations of putting what should be the right kind of products on first. It's not that you've got 1,000 new lines and you don't know what to do with them. So that's the first part of it. In terms of pricing, I would never compare pricing on Amazon to Shopify, because again, we talk about the Prime memberships, the people that will start their shopping journey on Amazon. And yes, some of those will go from Amazon to TikTok to your website, but many of them who buy on Prime will buy on Prime. They see Amazon, they trust Amazon. So as long as your pricing model is one fair, you've got to have your pricing around your similar category market, if it's a new product, because otherwise you're not going to compete. And two, if you make sure that your pricing is profitable for you and your net margins are there, that's what should be important. You don't want to end up undercutting and losing out on Amazon just because you want your price to match with Shopify. That to me makes no sense. I just wouldn't bother selling a product on Amazon if you are trying to undercut, because Amazon's going to be more expensive to sell on an individual unit.
Yeah.
But then the comparison that we never discuss, I suppose, is the fact that with Shopify, you've got to pay for your own SEO, you've got to pay for your own PPC, you've got to pay for your own brand building. With Amazon, so much of that is built in for you. You've already got that market, that audience available. It just depends on how you work towards achieving that market and getting those sales. So actually, from a unit by unit cost perspective, they're quite similar in most cases.
Oh, I would even argue that Shopify is more expensive overall because
some markets absolutely. Yeah, I would say so. If you're in a competitive market, if you're in fashion, you're in supplements, or anything like that, you're gonna need a very deep pockets.
Because usually you have to factor the agencies. Because if you're doing SEO, that's one agency. If you're doing Google PPC, that's another agency. So already you need to factor that in.
Exactly.
So it's
absolutely
all extra. And by the way, if you find an agency that does everything, either they're one of the biggest in the world or they're not good. Because agencies that do everything are usually not good. Because there's just with Amazon and Amazon only, forget about any other platform. There's so many nuances. There's so many different things, so many changes that if I had to do Google PPC as well, if I had to do Meta ads as well, unless you have different departments and head of departments for each that are very good, I don't see how you can do it.
100%. Yeah, 100%. It's that whole adage of jack of all trades, isn't it? Master of none. That's certainly the way. We have got multiple agencies for different segments that we operate in terms of SEO, PPC, the like, etc. I do all my LinkedIn myself, but
you're quite active on LinkedIn. Yeah, I see you on LinkedIn all the time.
I use it as sort of my ranting ground, in all genuine fairness, what I want to do, and maybe this is something that we can kind of start a bit of a revolution, is trying to get more of a conversation going. So I see a lot of things, and I'm sure you do as well on LinkedIn, and you go, I don't agree with that. But and that's fine. The great thing is we're all industry peers. We all have our own experience with our own clients. We all see things very differently. And I want to use that as a sounding board. If I say to someone, look, I think there's no point optimizing Rufus right now as an SEO strategy on Amazon because 13% of people use Rufus. I'd rather use conversion. I don't want to be a funnel of people just telling me I'm right. I want people to respectfully disagree with me and then give me information, because then we all learn from it. But that's not
Agreed.
what happens. People tend to go, I'm not gonna bite on this. I don't want to start an argument. And that's not why I do. I want opinions that are quite firm that we can kind of all learn from.
Yeah,
And
because
that's happened to me loads before.
someone might be using Rufus and works very well for them. Like
Exactly. They could say, look, I'm seeing huge level of searches that are query based in my ads, and great, okay, we might need to look into that then. But I every time I ask for something, and then I'll say, okay, give me a case study, show me something, and then people go, well, I want to get that, because we all have our own experiences from different client types, different models, and that's what I really want to get. And a lot of the time, it's people just think that I'm being a bit grumpy, or I'm just trying to say something to get some sort of raise at people, and genuinely that's not why I try and start that. But yeah, I post on Amazon, post on LinkedIn every single day pretty much about something to do with Amazon or news within Amazon, or just trying to get some sort of discussion going in terms of what's going on within our industry.
I agree. I think we see with the Amazon industry, and maybe most industries right now, there's so much misinformation and so much marketing behind it that very rarely do you speak. Like profit is almost like a bad word to say. It's all about growth and sales, which great. I agree. You have to have sales to have profit, but at what point does sales become unprofitable and unsustainable? There's always that fine line. And I do look. There's never a one answer thing for everything. You can be in supplements, and your lifetime value of customers huge. You have the subscribe and save. You're not going to have the same ACOs for supplements as in other categories. I do understand that. But are you just spending to spend? Or are you saying in 4 months, 5 months, whatever that is, hopefully we get to this spend? Because even with forecasting, that's another thing. Forecasting, good luck. It's very difficult to forecast. Like I've had clients saying, well, I've been with this agency and they told me that by this day, by this month, I'll be ranked this at this level, making this amount of sales. It doesn't work.
Run with, yeah. If they give you any form of guarantees, run. Absolutely. Yeah. It is an interesting one how many people do that in terms of forecasting or giving them. A lot of the time, remember that a lot of agencies and things, they'll employ people who are salespeople. Some of those salespeople get commissions. So sometimes some of the claims or some of the ways they try and get sales is not always genuine. I think that's fair to say, and people don't always know, and they'll say, oh, well, we can definitely do this for you, or they have a model for forecasting that isn't quite there. I don't think. I find it very difficult to do it. I mean, we always say, look, these are the facts of what we've done in the past. We're just trying to be honest and super transparent with it. This is what we do. We won't give you any guarantees in terms of forecasting, but this is what we've done in the past. These are our averages. These are the metrics we get within your category. We hope we can achieve the same. We've got a very strong team, and we'll see how it goes. But I'm not going to say to you, look, we're going to grow you £1 million in 6 months' time, because, and of course, the onus is also on the brand. A lot of people don't remember that. You've also got what happens when they get an out of stocks issue, or
Exactly.
we've had it before. We had a really big, really good brand we were growing, and they had a massive, massive fulfillment issue with DPD or DHL. They lost thousands of pounds of stock. It damaged their business. How do we tell them we're going to forecast that when half the onus is on your partner? It's on the business themselves to be within stock, to provide excellent customer service, to provide their side of the bargain. It's a two-way partnership, as we always say. You can't put the onus on any Amazon expert and say you're going to do this. It doesn't work that way in our experience.
It's a partnership. 100% is a partnership.
100%.
I think that's why the best brands we work with are guys who really understand manufacturing, really understand picking up a good product, and are very good to keep in stock. If it's a good product, then that's a good combination. Because as you said,
Yeah,
you might increase sales, but then they don't have stock, so your listing is dead, so you can't sell. So all of these things you can't predict for. And some clients look amazing at the beginning, and then something happens out of nowhere. That's part of the business. So
yeah,
that's why.
absolutely.
But I think from what I've seen, if you overpromise and under-deliver, you're going to keep these clients for a short time. If you're actually honest with them and they see that you're good by what you're saying and how you're acting, then you can keep them for longer. But if you're trying to just promise just to get the client, you're going to lose it.
Absolutely, yeah. That's why we've had our client retention is sort of 6 times longer than our contract lengths, because we don't keep people tied in, and we always try and give that level of honesty and transparency. That's what we've always tried to do, and that stems from something I didn't mention to you at the beginning about setting up. Was I worked with an agency, I worked with a PPC agency 12 years ago, and I got fired after 3 weeks working with them because their model was all about getting their clients to spend, this was Google PPC, spend money on ads, as 8% of that was their fee. So their entire goal, their entire business model was around getting clients to spend more. And that is always an error, because ultimately their North Star metric is to get you to spend more, not for you to become profitable or work on those metrics. And they asked me to find value for a client. And when I said, have we looked at doing this with a landing page? Have we thought about doing this? They went, no, we want you to find a way to create more campaigns, to find more seasonal things. I mean, this business was very seasonal. So things like your Mother's Days and your Halloweens and all that. And they were just trying to find ways to get them to spend more money. And I went, this is just not valuable. There's no value here in what you're doing for the client. And I said that in a meeting. I got fired the next day. So I vowed I'd never work in an agency that was so. And this agency is still going. They're a massive, massive agency. And I don't know if they've changed their values or that's the way they still work, but it's certainly not the way that I would ever want to run a business, because for me, my own opinion is I find it very dishonest. I don't think it gives value to any business that works big or small. But that seems to be unfortunately what happens in our industry quite a bit.
I think that's what that's what I think that's why I think agencies have bad reputations many times, because they're like there to collect money, and of course everyone wants to make money. Like, there's no lies about that. It's part of the game. Like, if you do a good job, you should get paid well. I don't think anyone debates that. But I think sometimes you see like the level of chasing the payment and making 5%, 10%, 20% fees, adding extras. It's more about how you make more money rather than the customer. Again, Absolutely. We go back to the customers, how Amazon is customer centric, and that's why they do well.
Exactly.
Right now, your team, how is that team structured? I imagine you have people who deal with PPC, people who do with design, so on and so forth.
Yeah, so we have a team of account managers that are looking after the day-to-day stuff, the really sort of core listing stuff, the real bread and butter of Amazon, and they'll handle that very well. They have a range of clients, so they are communicating directly with our clients, working through our project management systems. There's a really clear two-way street, very, very good communication all around. We then have an ads team as well that support that. But what makes us a bit more unique is the fact that we have a team that looks at the performance side of the business. So we're not just keen on looking at pretty Amazon listings and ticking the box of optimization and saying, haven't we got a lot of great reviews? We're looking at those numbers. We look at P&Ls, we look at profitability, we look at where are opportunities for that client to grow and where is the return on investment for them. And that's really important for us, and also really important for the client. That's what all clients should be looking for when they're working with an agency. So we have that, and then that's kind of headed up by our ops director, who kind of overviews the entire product. So we have a very clear model. We have an excellent team of people. I mean, it's not about me at all. I've got the ball rolling, but we have because we have an excellent team of people that are very knowledgeable and skilled in what they do. And the real skill for us in the business and how we've built it is the refinement process. So, and I think this is the same for all businesses, not just agencies, but I think so many people are so clued into having a singular product, and they say, this is our product, like it or lump it. And that either works or it fails. But what we've done is we've taken a product, an idea of products, and molded it around the needs of the client. So we've worked with, overall I've worked with about 250 different Amazon sellers and vendors over the last 13 years, and probably with an e-commerce intelligence, we've had well over 100, 150 of those. And over this sort of 6 years or so. And what's basically happening is we mold that. So when a client tells us we've done a crap job, we've done something terrible, sometimes you take that and go, actually, this is the client. But a lot of the time we'll take that on board and say, how do we adjust? How do we modify that? So their feedback is valuable. Yeah. Exactly. And most of the time there's truth to it. And you're absolutely right. And you have to almost put your ego aside and say, is there some element of what this person has told me valuable to our product? What can we change? What can we modify? And if you're hearing it more than once, I mean, that is a straightforward answer that you need to change it, but modifying your products and being able to adapt it has meant why I think our product is so strong, because we've made this modification and pivoted constantly. There's always something we're tweaking or trying to improve or make better because of what we see and what that feedback we get from the clients. Bad feedback is always great because, good feedback, you can't really do a great deal with that. You get a pat on the back saying job well done. But when people tell you you've done something horrendously, I was told when we started the business, a guy came in told us that the ad strategy we'd put in place was just non-existent and it was horrendous. And I was so annoyed. We'd lost this client. I'd gone to Manchester. I was really annoyed. This sort of young guy had come in and he thought he was, amazing and Mr. Ego, and told us all this stuff. And I was got in this taxi. I was really cheesed off and really frustrated. And half an hour later, I said, he's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. Looking at it, we've made really big, grave errors here. What can we do now to improve that and modify that? And having that mindset, I think, is what's given us the real structure to become we're now, I think we're one of the only gold Amazon agency partners. So because of what we've got in terms of size and scalability. So that has happened from constant adaptation and modification of growing our business.
Mm-hmm. And right now, clients-wise, I imagine a lot of them are coming from referrals at your size because it's just you're doing a good job and they're coming. And probably LinkedIn. I imagine you're getting a lot of contact by LinkedIn because I haven't seen you running any ads, at least that I've seen.
Any ads where? Sorry, we do ads in different places, not on LinkedIn.
Ads, like for example, Facebook ads and Google PPC. I haven't seen, or maybe I haven't looked.
Yeah, we do quite a lot on Google PPC, but you're right. Facebook and social is an odd one. Social media from our industry is something that we kind of dabble in. LinkedIn, I don't do anything advertising wise. It's all me ranting every day. And just connecting with people. I do love to connect with other people in our industry. I think it's great getting feedback from other people, in terms of what they do, how they work. We've got a fantastic industry of professionals that I constantly try and keep in touch with. So, but yeah, in terms of advertising, we do quite a bit on Google. But I suppose we do rank quite well with Google as well organically. And yeah, most of the stuff is within LinkedIn. That's where a lot of the work comes from. We get a lot of inquiries and customers through LinkedIn. It's been a very long, tough slog, though. I mean, for my LinkedIn to take off, it probably took 18 months, 2 years to be able to really get moving. And in terms of a follower count, I'm nowhere compared to some of the bigger people. But I do like it for the engagement and the discussions that we build. So yeah, that's where a lot of our business comes through. Yeah, and we do get some referrals and things. We have a lot of very interesting people. I've just literally, before coming on this call with you, I've just had a call with the dad of a very, very, very big celebrity influencer who have their own brand. So it's interesting some of the people you talk to as well, and where they found you. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think time in the space always makes a difference. I think
100%.
Because you've seen a lot of things. You can never tell me that someone who's been selling for a year has seen things with someone like who's selling for 5 years, because the industry is just changing so fast. 2 years ago was very different than now. A year ago, you can debate was very different. Just the amount of times fees were changed in the last 5 years. It's
yeah. I mean, if you look at someone like Smart Scout's data, if you look at how FBA fees have changed in the last sort of 18 months, it's gone from being slight movements to now just being like this all the time. It's just, we're seeing fees change once every couple of months. We update our fee calculations all the time because, like this whole thing of profitability, so many people have their fee structures wrong because of that, in terms of costings and not being right. The clothing fees that changed mid-May because they'd gone from being what's it called? Dimensional weights to standardized weights. How many clothing and apparel sellers do you think know that those fees changed on the 15th of May? Because my data would suggest very few, and those fees, they might be a few pence, but if you're doing 10,000 units a day, that's a lot of cash and that's a lot of margin change that you need to be reviewing. And that's something that we try and really excel at, is making sure we're on board with making sure the clients maintain their profitability and their margins for sure. Where are we seeing it now? I mean, the best way to analyze where Amazon is going is go to something like Accelerate, because Accelerate, obviously, they have their conference, they're talking about the tools, and everything is all glossy and wonderful and fantastic, as it always is. And that kind of gives you an idea where it's going. And the things that they were really keen to talk about the first day, you'd think it would be about AI and the things, but it wasn't. The very first day, their entire sort of their entire sort of keynotes and all those things were all about the distribution side. So using warehouse distribution and all these new things. So there's a huge new element in terms of where all the warehousing and development is coming in. There's obviously discussions about using drone deliveries and things. So I think a lot of the self-fulfillment processes. When I say self-fulfillment, I mean self-fulfillment prime, I mean FBA rather than vendor. There's obviously huge now. Where Amazon's moving to is more within a holistic e-commerce platform, and what I mean by that is we've now got Buy with Prime. We've now got things with where they're being plugged into third-party and Shopify websites. They're trying to get really into that market now of not just being the marketplace of Amazon, but also the e-commerce provider to many other elements of e-commerce. There's all these plugins to things like AWS and all that as well that's coming through. That's one element of it. I think in the other format for how the marketplace is moving is definitely within automation and less reliance on humans, which I think is a bit of a troublesome thing. We've seen there's these new AI tools and bits and pieces that are coming in, and again, my worry, like I said at the beginning, is people getting too involved in the hype of AI rather than looking in propping up their ladder against the right wall and looking at these things like conversion, looking at customer centricity, looking at all these things that really matter.
That AI is I agree, a lot of hype on AI, and I do believe, don't get me wrong, it's amazing what AI can do, but it's similar to the internet 20 years ago. It's not going to replace everything. It's just going to change things, as you said. Because from what I'm seeing on AI, AI is powerful, but whoever controls the AI and gives the inputs is more important than the actual AI.
Yeah, 100%. I think that it's going to be a good tool. We're seeing that already with certain things, but the hype is that it's a one button press business magic maker. It's exactly the same when things like Bitcoin came out, or it's not as bad as things like these NFTs, and it was like the biggest cash grab straight away thing, but there was too much hype around it, and there needs to be more practical discussion about how it can actually be used as a tool rather than it being a replacement for everything and anything. That seems to be the thing. People are constantly talking about it. You go, okay, but what's it actually doing? What can we actually do with it? And I think you're right. It's going to become a tool in addition to what we do, but I don't think it's going to be too much of a change. I think.
Thank you for being here with me, Chris. Very, very knowledgeable, amazing stuff. I'll try to fit in one thing before the internet cuts off.
Sure.
So, actually, two things. You said that you have account managers, PPC specialists, so on and so forth. Are they all located in the UK or is everywhere?
Yeah, they are all located in the UK. So
I'd love to hear that.
There are 7 or 8 of them literally behind this computer here. So we're all UK based. We don't do anything outsourcing. I think that can work for some people, but we try and keep it all. I think when you get everyone together, the knowledge, experience, everything you get together, it's just vast. I think that's one of the few things that we can do that a lot of agencies can't do. It's just in terms of experience. It's fantastic having a localized team that we can have all together and really, empowering ideas. And because everyone's always had, someone will say I've had this issue, and then someone will say I've had that with this client, and they've been able to really get that experience together.
I love that. Couldn't agree more, because I see most agencies have overseas employees. So there's nothing wrong with that. But I think the big difference is the level of talent. It varies. I've seen that level of talent from the Philippines and Pakistan is not as great as, for example, someone from Europe. That's just my experience, of course. And I think being everyone in the office, it makes a difference, because where you see agencies having 500 staff, 300 staff, but they're all outsourced, that's not really your team, because you never see them. I mean, the connection for me that you create in an office compared to the connection you create via Zoom, it's different.
Yeah, 100%. And even just having the conversation, it can be very different, especially because things can just crop up and someone will go, has anyone seen this before? And then people go, yes, yeah, absolutely, this has happened. So it does have a very different dynamic when you do things in-house than when you do things on a Google Meets or, a Zoom or anything like that. Absolutely.
And I do think with a smaller team, when you're in-house, you can do a lot more than if you kind of start outsourcing left and right.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And then of course always run the risk of understanding fully what the team are doing as well. I think the bigger your team gets, it's difficult anyway. When you start having teams that are in different locations, different time zones, that can become more challenging as well. So yeah, I mean, I think it works for some businesses, some agencies, but the way that we've built ours, this is what works for us, and it works really well.
I love that. I love that. Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you for
No
your
worries. Thank you very much for having me on. Yeah, no, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to keeping connected more with you, Iani, and seeing what you do. It's great to know that we've got so many kind of similar thought processes as well with our industry as well. So that's fantastic.